Welcome to this episode of Tech Beyond Gender. I'm your host, Meena Satish Kumar. Today, we have the incredible Irina Mosina, an entrepreneur and CEO. From her early aspirations, shaped by her upbringing, to becoming a dynamic leader in the tech world, Irina's journey is nothing short of inspiring. She's not just breaking barriers, she's redefining what it means to lead with integrity, innovation, and passion. We'll dive into her story of moving into New Zealand, her experiences as a female entrepreneur, and the values that have driven her success. Get ready for an empowering and insightful conversation. Welcome to our podcast, Irina. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mina. So good to be here.
Now, to begin with, can you share a glimpse of your childhood and early years? What were your aspirations growing up, and how did they shape who you are today?
Well, I think first thing to remember is I was born in the south of Russia, which historically was a bit of a melting pot of different nationalities, cultures. And it did influence the variety of people and variety of situations I got myself into. But it's just a general feeling of being in that place is joyful. People love freedom, the fearless, and there's always been a bit of a commercially minded folk there as well. Um, I think my family played a huge part in the way my work ethic and my mentality was shaped as well. And I think on a reflection, that probably was the biggest influence for me. But if you think about my family as well, they very good representation of that melting pot because my dad is from north of Russia and my mom's actually Armenian. So we're having extreme south and extreme north meeting together in this place. And her family on its own is an incredible story, but we have these people that their families or themselves, they moved places, they immigrated, they started from scratch. And that was all in front of my eyes. There was all the childhood stories that I would hear about my grandpa, who was during World War II a French partisan and spent 4 years fighting Nazis in French forests, eating only apples. Like this is kind of the upbringing that I had. But yeah, that's what I remember. My parents, my grandparents, strong, independent thinkers.
Wow. Wow. That's actually amazing. Coming from a background filled with rich cultures and a mix of rich cultures. Yeah. So,
Yep,
how did that influence your career path decision?
yep. Um, like I think any 16, 17-year-old, I either had moments where I didn't know what I want to do because everyone was asking like, oh, what are you going to do? Which university are you going to go to? Or I had like 25 options. I wanted to do everything. And when you send me the questions beforehand, it made me realize that that's pretty much me. Like I have this feeling that there's so much to learn, there's so much to do, and I don't have enough time within my lifetime to do all of it. But the funny thing is that I think I always wanted to do something creative. So my dad's an architect, my mom's a teacher. My grandma's, she's a doctor. My other grandpa was a famous artist. So I had this mix of engineering minds and artists and people that give back to other people.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, well, my dad's an architect and I want to be an architect. He gently influenced me not to pursue that path because it's a very tough profession, um, even now for women. But back then in post-Soviet Union Russia, that was not really the good choice. So just by luck, I ended up in a state school, which was specializing in math and the early days of what was called programming. So the deal with that school was is that you graduate from that school and your graduate marks basically guarantee you entrance into a uni, into math faculty of choice, all sorts of different variety. So I was thinking about biology, I was thinking about economics. I went and I did all sorts of prep courses, but it just happened to be the path that opened up.
Mm,
And I know it sounds very opportunistic, but it did require quite a lot of studying and quite a lot of good marks to get in. But also it was the visionary influence again of dad who said, this is the future.
mm,
And um, uncharacteristically to teenager me back then, I listened. Just it's like, all right, okay, we'll see how it goes. And it was in a neighborhood, the uni wasn't that far. So, all those different funny factors that are very human, the
mm,
influence that I graduated from quite prestigious university in the south of Russia and then actually in Russia. And it's a 5-year degree, which is, I don't know, equivalent of diploma or something like this. The cool thing about that diploma, it was basically accepted in any other universities for postgraduate, or if you would apply to a position abroad. And that's the thing again about what was happening in my household. We were not okay with what was going on with Soviet Union. We were not okay with what was going on um, in the early days of post perestroika, because you need to imagine growing up as a teenager
mm,
where suddenly the whole doctrine of what you've been brainwashed is just falls apart.
mm,
And then suddenly your teachers are telling you everything that you know is not true.
mm,
Actually, the truth is this. You become very skeptical, but also you just learn to employ your critical thinking about everything. And the more I listen to my parents, because there's more books than food in my house, the
mm,
more I listen to them debating with each other, listening to radio, the more I had the feeling that I cannot align with what's going to happen in Russia in 1999.
mm,
So my really pathway was either go up to Moscow, and it is a culturally completely different place.
mm,
Like if you're familiar with Italy, with I think Naples and Milan, right? This is kind of the difference it is. And I just felt like that it's absolutely wrong. Or you go somewhere else and you try yourself somewhere else. Um, I was forced to start my employment before I graduated from uni because my dad got sick,
mhm,
and it was quite a serious illness which prevented him from working for a while, so he needed to recover. And I again was introduced to environment where I had to prove myself. I started working as a system administrator. I think that's what all network administrator. I was year two at uni. And at the time, you had to know someone to get this job. So I think my mom's talked to someone and they talked to someone. So it was like a coincidence. But there was the very first day, the director of that branch of the bank gathered everyone around, and it's about, I don't know, 100 people. And he said, this is the future head of IT for our bank. And the current head of IT was standing back there. So my first year at the place was not, but it did make me learn how to stand my ground.
mm,
What happened is that I was exposed to a lot of technologies, to a lot of ways of, well, supporting IT to start with, and it basically helped me then gain employment as a software developer, right? So when I graduated, that just happened much easier. Um, from there, there was not necessarily the thing that I would have chosen myself to do all the time, because I think in the background, I was always designing websites. I was always trying to do some graphic design. That was my kind of, side hobby. Um, but I realized that what I enjoy in the software development part is the same element of creativity and the freedom that you have to actually arrive to the solution, to the outcome in your own way and mold it in a way that you want. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I was just intrigued when you mentioned that you were working as a network administrator in your second year of graduation, right? Even now, you don't really see many women as network administrators in New Zealand, right? And not many women pursue that path of network or security, from my experience.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that? How was your experience in your first role as a network administrator in Russia?
So that was a system admin job that actually included everything that you needed to do around the application support and network support. We literally did not have one dude in a team. There was just ladies.
Oh, wow.
And
Which
they
year
were
was this?
tough. That was 1996, 1997.
Okay.
So traditionally, if you think about it, the banks at the time that they were transitioning into digital technologies.
Mm,
So being a branch of a bigger bank, they would have to be told like this is the system that you need to be using in terms of the application for the banking. And this is pretty much, the reports that you need to be producing. The network itself, if we're going really into technical, there was no yet a Wi-Fi. There was not really the internet. The internet was used for the modems to actually process the information to the main
hmm
um, center to collate it all. Internally, it was just making sure that the individual stations are working. But I remember on the first or the second day calling my boyfriend. It's like, well, how do well, I don't know this command. Like, I just remember this having this cold sweat. It's like, because my boss, she was giving me all the sorts of evil tasks. Like, she was literally telling me, well, since you are a future boss, you should know how to do it. And I was a year two student that was studying like algorithmic equations and mathematical analysis. I didn't know anything about system administration. But going back to your question, I think the challenges is there is that it might not be uh, I don't know. It's interesting because there's a lot of moving parts in it. It's changing a lot, right? Because you have to think about a lot of different variables that might be influencing the problem that you're trying to solve. These days, knowing what I know about the security and administration, there is magnitude even more complex. So I don't see why it wouldn't be interesting for our guild to pick it up because it's actually such a cool thing. Like it's for me, it gives off a really cool factor. Um, and I like the independence of it because you kind of in the background, you're doing your own thing and you basically come in and you save the day. Like this is
Yeah.
the way I saw the job. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you enjoy transitioning into software development from sort of infrastructure area?
Yeah, and again, like I'm actually quite grateful because at that point I was already in a relationship with my future co-founder, and he was the driving force, basically saying like, "Look, come on, you've got it, you can do it." Like, so I actually had quite a lot of support from a male population throughout my career. So that was one of the things that he did. And he said, like, okay, you obviously can excel and you can become the IT director of the bank, but is it what you want? So we ended up working together in a company that writes the software for the banks. Again, I was the most junior person there. And to be honest, I was treated as a baby with all this, I guess, the outcomes of this. So I wouldn't say that I was taking necessarily very seriously when I started as a software developer
Mhm.
within this company, but I did have quite a lot of support and encouragement. It was a proprietary language, so we were not reading or writing in anything that, at the time, not Pascal or even Java. And
Mhm.
that was the limiting factor, I think, if you think about the career progression that both Ed and I were aware of.
Mhm.
But also, That environment of its own that didn't sit well with us. There was just and I think that's universal, the whole banking environment that's very work hard, body hard.
Mm,
And there was not a lot of learning, right? So it was basically you learn how to code with this proprietary language and you now what?
mm,
So that is when I really started uh, putting some effort and putting some things in place to actually start applying for jobs abroad.
mm. Excellent. I just wanted to go back to the fact you mentioned about how your boyfriend at the time was supporting you, right? Or the co-founder of your organization. I think the contribution of male allies can just not be undermined. Um, and it is so important for us to get the support from them for us to be able to see a different side to everything because we don't know what we don't know uh, with our limited experiences. But our experiences coupled with an experience from someone a bit more privileged in that space can give us a completely different perspective and open up a whole new world to us, right?
Yep. And I still remember, and it's actually quite funny, the person that used to work with us at that company in the very first software role that I had, we became friends with, and he just told me, like, you're going to be CEO one day. And I was what, I don't know, 20. I completely dismissed it. But that one phrase, coupled with something else that my former employee here in New Zealand told me, that was enough for me to basically, it's like, okay, well, he sees something in me.
Mm,
Maybe I should start looking inside me myself and see what is it that make them believe that
mm.
I can, yeah, do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a huge bonus having male allies with us. And how did you move to New Zealand and what made you decide, okay, New Zealand is a place I could explore?
Mm. It was a bit of a detour. I didn't start moving to New Zealand. So
Yeah.
when I was doing that frenzy of applying to different jobs, I remember applying to a position in Netherlands and in Ireland. And it was just like, oh yeah, why not? I honestly don't remember the logic behind it. I was just like, yeah, Netherlands. And what happened is that they actually came back to us. And again, we ended up working together because the interview was in Moscow, and I think we just drove up there and flew there. And they really liked Ed, my co-founder, my boyfriend at the time. I don't even think I had an interview on that day. But anyway, he was so cool. He told them, "You look, if you like me, you also need to employ my I think we were married at the time already. You need to employ my wife as well because she's, a kick-ass developer. So we're working together." So I still feel a little bit like I was like a freeloader. And yet again, I had to really prove myself when I got there. There was a bit of a language barrier. I thought my English was perfect because I always had like really good marks and we were going to really cool um, courses. But when I got there and I needed to converse in a professional language, and they just basically bombarded me with all the stupid assignments they can think of. It's like, well, go away and write support documentation for this product. And it's a completely different language if you think about it in the way that support documentation needs to be phrased. I just reminding you, there was no ChatGPT, there was no Google, there was nothing. So you literally have to write this whole thing. Um, and I just remember being so frozen and not really able to like, I had to present the project that I would be developing. I was working really hard to prove myself and to prove to them that I'm not just a plus one.
Mm,
So that's, on the reflection, not an ideal situation, but I'm very open about it because that opened up a possibility for me to actually really become a team leader in that organization. So I did progress Java certification exams like in a proctored environment to prove my worth. And I was like, okay, bring it on. So I discovered that inner strength inside me.
mm,
Um, which I think I really needed. Just like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I don't care what you think. Like, I'm worth it. So that was a interesting times. Amsterdam was fun, but we didn't see much of it because it was a startup and it was growing and we would work like crazy hours, 50, 60 hours a week, like really long hours overnight. The development team was fairly small and they had some ambitious projects that they wanted us to take on. And after about 3 or 4 years living in Amsterdam, very expensive city, I just started thinking, okay, well, I'm a woman.
Mhm.
And the way I was brought up, and when we were leaving Russia as well, all the friends and family of my husband were asking, like, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you guys have a child?
Mm.
Like, is something wrong with you? Why don't you have children yet? And we were married for like 4 years by then. And I was like, oh, okay, the clock is ticking. All right, remember, this is 2002, 2003. So I just started thinking, like, well, would I settle? Would I want to raise kids in Europe at the time? And it was just after this post 9/11 world wasn't a very good place to be in Europe because they had bombing in London as well. And the Netherlands was always very divided when it comes to immigrants.
Mm.
And there was constant in all the airways and all the conversations that you would have. You go to a hairdresser, you go to massage, and then they would be asking you like, what do you think about Moroccans or Algerians coming and taking our jobs? Like, and I always felt, oh, the other questions that they would always ask, and I love Dutch, don't get me wrong, they would always ask, oh, are you married to a Dutch person? That's how you got in here. So there was just this kind of, extra period that you needed to jump through. And I felt like my kids, like I'm tough enough, but my kids would always be treated as immigrants. So I was thinking like, well, why don't we go to the country that is built out of immigrants, like historically, and that actually has this overall feeling of like, it's okay, it doesn't matter where you came from, you've got opportunities. So yeah, we applied to, I think, Canada and New Zealand. The upside of working so hard, we had, a decent salary. Half of it went to taxes straight away. We never saw that. Whatever we have left, we were spending on traveling to all these English-speaking countries and basically, calibrating to the vibe of this country and like, oh, how would we feel there? How would we here?
Mm.
Okay, we went to Australia, we went to US, Canada, and that was just so obvious. That was just so in your face when we landed in New Zealand that this is it. This is the place. The people, um, the overall feeling, and no, it wasn't because of Lord of the Rings. It was just everything. And there's a lot of serendipity going on why New Zealand did happen, but our application got approved. So that was part of the skilled migrants program, and we were selected from the pool. And guess what? Nothing happens in my life, just that. I got pregnant, so we were moving country, we were immigrating, having a baby, getting a house, getting a new job, and yeah, starting a company at the same time.
Wow. Wow. How was that transition moving
I
to
don't remember.
country?
It's a blur.
Which is good, right? You probably now just
Yeah,
see the rosy side of everything. Oh, you were
yeah,
pregnant,
yeah,
you
yeah.
started a company, and you were in a new country. That's
Well, yeah. So I do remember. I actually those days I do remember quite vividly. So my son was born in the end of October. And he was a tiny baby, so I was pretty much attached to him. We were still working remotely for our Dutch employer, which was very fortunate at the time. And actually, at the same time, we were working remotely for a US company as well. So this whole work remotely thing was not news for us. But um, I don't remember why, but I always wanted to. make sure that we have our own company. And I think the name of the company actually was Ed's childhood dream to name his company that way. And I'm just this kind of person, okay, let's do this, let's do this. And it was just so easy. Like it was end of November, so it, yeah, it must have been. So we turned 19 just very recently. Like the company was established in 2005.
Wow.
And you just go to company's office, you set up a constitution based on the template that was there, you pay a fee, and it's done. And compared to the bureaucracy that would have accompanied this in Russia or even Netherlands, there was just such a welcoming, an amazing surprise that you can do it this way. They think the initial idea was is that we continue working as we are, but we're gonna use uh, the company as a platform for us to experiment doing different things, and we did. So until we settled on what we do right now, it actually took us 3 years, which is not a long time if you think about it, ideating on different directions.
Mm.
So, and again, it's quite a lot of happy coincidences that happened to enable us to settle on being Atlassian partner. But one thing that we've done right is that we were volunteering just because at the parent center. So when you're pregnant, you go to the courses and they teach you how to breathe and they teach you how to take care of kids. So the the parent center organization, they needed a website. And by that time, we already had experience working with Atlassian tools, being software developers in
Mm.
Netherlands. So Ed had an idea, okay, well, why don't we use Confluence, which is a content management tool? And if you remember, there was the starting days of WordPress.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so it was just starting, yeah, yeah. But I was so deep into web design, like I read everything, like all the Smashing magazine, everything that I need to know. So we wrote a theme for the website on Confluence, which was apparently quite innovative. Um, and what happens when you use that as a template at the bottom of the page, we just put the name of our company and the Confluence puts its own kind of signature. So this website was operating for a while. Google already probably scanned it multitude of times. Someone from the Parliamentary Services, New Zealand,
Hmm.
went and Googled uh, Atlassian Confluence support developer and found us because of that,
Oh, wow.
footer of the website. And they came to us asking, like, can you guys develop this app for us? And we're sure, like, yeah, what's the problem? We can. And that was something that we did as a contract job first within Atlassian space, but in parallel, just to illustrate the choices that we had, we started exploring sensors technology. That was 2007, 2008. That would be collecting data from the soil of the vineyards, sending it back to the server, and then just creating those beautiful reports and predictive analytics to tell the vineyard owners, okay, well, you need to water it, or the humidity is
Wow.
down. So basically, thinking through how you can automate those processes. And our pilot through the friends was in Sicily, out of all the places.
Mm.
And yeah, we actually talked to a couple of vineyards here. And then we just realized that the technology itself, like the idea is great, but physical technology, the strength of the signal that individual devices basically, so they're building the network between each other. It wasn't strong enough, and it was just such a fast developing field that you would need continuous investment to be able to get new sensors, new collectors, and all the kind of stuff. So at some point, once we had this app and we basically solved that problem for that particular parliamentary services person, Atlassian came up with the idea of marketplace. It's basically like an app store.
Mm-hmm.
And we were invited to be founding members of Atlassian Marketplace. with that app, because before we were basically selling it, not selling it, but giving away for free, I don't remember, on our website. But this was the first kind of commercial entry into the world of Atlassian. And it was me and employee number three and my co-founder. And they basically asked me, they were looking at me and they were like, well, okay, what do we do? We have option to do this. We have option to do this as a company. What do we do? And then there was this pause. And it's like, well, you CEO, you need to decide. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, well, it's obvious. Yeah, we're doing just Atlassian. And they rumbled and grumbled, but the rest is history. That's so since 2008, 2009, that's what we've been doing solely. Yeah.
Wow. But like how things just flowed for you, right? Like, I just see that
Yeah.
it was all just happening rather than obviously there was a lot of hard work involved in it, but you seem to have managed to be in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people.
It seems that way. You're absolutely right. What I'm probably not sharing, maybe I should, and I'm not that kind of person, is all the tears and arguments and the heartbreaks that were behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Because that's how I get through things. I focus on the outcomes, like why all of this was happening. Like I'm trying to see the bigger idea behind all of this. Because if I just mentally hold on to all the mean things that someone told me, or all the times where I was misjudged or underappreciated, that's just not going to get me anywhere. So that bigger goal of uh, establishing something that gives us the freedom to what we want, but at the same provides the, absolute minimum comfortable life for my family. That was pretty much it.
Mm.
And I think I always struggled with the like, well, what is the vision? What is the mission? Like from the beginning of the company, I went through all the right exercises. Like what's the exit strategy? What is your company mission? Like I just remember sitting, I was like, well, for now, I just want to be able to pay people salary, and I want them to believe in what they're doing, and I want to help the companies that only I can help with the stuff they're struggling with. Like it's pretty obvious, right? So, but yeah, there's a lot of banging on the wall and getting stuck and feeling out of place in some places as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, you get through this.
So the challenges that you faced, right? Do you think were they unique to you being a woman, or do you think any entrepreneur would have faced those challenges anyway?
I think they were quite unique because, and I can only talk um, about my view on the family and my priorities. There are fantastic women that don't put kids or family as a priority for them, and that's absolutely fine. That's their absolute choice. The challenges for me was always the risk taking.
Hmm.
So I think if I would be a man without kids, that's in my head, I would probably be looking at making, or at least evaluating, some of the decisions that would be much more risky and put the whole enterprise under much more question mark, like, oh, the outcome could actually be disastrous. I did not have that option.
Mm.
So for my employees and for my kids, I was the provider of the future.
Mm.
That thought never left my head. And that was not like my individual success right now, but this, um, well, why don't we take this, and doesn't matter what happens, we should just try. It's like, well, it matters what happens because this guy wants to get a mortgage and this lady is looking at having a baby or getting married. It matters what happens. And I think for both of us, Ed and I, we had this kind of um feeling of like, well, this is good karma. We should be doing things right for people. So that did change potentially the way that company could have evolved if I wasn't a woman. I think the other aspect of it is in the early days, I would go and mingle and network with a lot of different um, professional environments, right? So we would go and talk to the IT directors or CTOs or CIOs and all those different events. And I can just feel the way that they would talk to me. There was nothing offensive, but it was always almost just like, oh, well, this is a cute accent. And oh wait, you in technology? Oh, well, this so it was never hostile in any way. But I always felt there was more like, oh my God, she talks. This is the feeling that so. And I would always laugh it off because within, 5 minutes, they would know that I'm in business so that kind of disappears. So as soon as you get through this conversation, and I remember being the only woman in the boardroom when we were presenting our solution somewhere in Taranaki. And there's just there's like 11 or 12 of them sitting, a very traditional energy company, looking at me with this like, okay, well, what can you possibly tell us? So, yeah, I don't know if it's a challenge or it's actually something that's quite disarming for them because they would come in every morning, they would go into the board meeting, and then they would not expect a woman to be there and telling them what to do. So, yeah, try to use it to my advantage. But yeah.
So, how did you overcome those situations where you felt like you were treated as a pretty woman with a cute accent, but not as a technical entrepreneur? Like, what steps or what did you do to overcome those situations?
Well, I just stick to my guns because I just talk about what I know and what I need from them. And like I said, within minutes, um, I think that initial kind of glossy impression stops being the very first thing that they see. So when you engage in a conversation that matters, when you actually go to the topics that matter to them, yeah, that's all it is. Like I said, that's pretty much it. I don't focus on this. I observe it. I'm aware of it.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's cute that they're reacting that way because they basically, they shouldn't be because I don't think it's professional. But I don't take offense into that. And I don't need them to take me seriously uh, based on my looks. I need them to take me seriously based on my actions and what I can do for them.
Mm. So, what is the most rewarding aspect of being a female entrepreneur?
Hmm. Again, I think this nurturing feeling that, and I don't want to generalize, but I think in general, what I observe in a lot of female leaders population is this a feeling of wanting to build a community out of your employees, out of your customers, based on mutual respect and support and desire to help. I don't want it to be a family. We're not a family. Um, but that feeling that you can lead with love, respect, and kindness, even though you are firm, even though you are assertive, even though you can deliver um, strict feedback, it's still it's about the team. It's about what you leave behind, and it is rewarding when yesterday or day before my teams prepared a slideshow of basically all the things that we did as a team in the last like 10 years and all the photos that they got somewhere in archive. And yeah, that's such a amazing, gratifying feeling seeing that I and Ed gave chances to those people to establish their lives, right? And then yeah, that might have been a mission for me in the last years without, really making it a mission and putting it on the wall. But someone immigrated to New Zealand, otherwise they wouldn't have had a chance because of us. yeah, multiple people bought their houses and applied for mortgages and got them approved and were able to pay them because they were working for that little company in Wellington. Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice. Now, you mentioned about how you created that environment of nurturing. So you didn't want that, you knew that it's a work environment, so it's not a family, but at the same time, you sort of created an environment where people could just be more nurtured and stuff. So, what qualities or aspects that you think a female entrepreneur would bring to an organization that could be quite unique for a female entrepreneur?
Really good question. Um, I think we're quite good at understanding reasons behind someone's behavior. So instead of focusing on the symptoms, right? Someone's arriving at work and they angry or they upset. Just naturally, I think we have the communication skills to emotional intelligence to step back and say like, okay, there's something going on. Like we don't have to make that extra effort. And again, I might be generalizing, but that's what I've seen. So they must have had a bad day, or maybe something going on with their health. That helps simply because you don't jump to conclusions and you don't escalate things based on this, because the bad results follow from people not being fully present, right? So they're not performing because there are other things going on.
Mm.
Communicating this to male partners within the business and basically being that translator, the proxy for that emotional intelligence sphere of information that's happening around us. I think that's really, really valuable. And not to say that other men are not doing this, but I think we might just have that switched on. Yeah.
Hmm. So, what advice would you give to women who are considering starting their own businesses but might feel hesitant or unsure about taking that step?
I think it depends on the business, really. If you're talking about the tech space, that's a whole different beast.
Mm.
Um, Choosing your partner right, that would be number one. If you want to do it alone, it doesn't have to be a partner, but building the team right, or at least thinking of who is going to be on your team or who you're gonna outsource your work on, because you're gonna be spending a lot of hours with those people. And what I've learned is that you, first of all, want to stay in good relationship with this person, with that partner, with your co-founder, with your whoever, rather than be right. So you need to be choosing someone you're working with who you can have an honest argument. You're gonna have a lot of arguments. Um, and just be prepared emotionally that someone will constantly tell you that you're wrong. So, yeah, stand your ground, learn how to build your argument. But remember, this is not about winning individually, it's about winning as a company. So hold that big goal in front of you. Um, you definitely don't forget about yourself as a person. Like get your priorities right. So why are you doing this? Is because you're trying to realize yourself. And if that's what you want to do, like establish yourself as a person, or is it a commercial enterprise? That's very important
Mm.
because that would, I think, require different mental and physical resources.
Mm.
Yeah, because in a letter you would be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to suffer for like 3 years, but then I'm going to be selling it and pop, I'm in Miami. In the first case, you don't have to push through and do all-nighters. You really can afford to enjoy it. So choose a sphere or topic or domain that is so close to your heart that you can just make it part of your life.
Mm.
So if you really like cosmetics, or you really enjoy web design, or you really enjoy, I don't know, helping people, that needs to be an integral part of what you do. Yeah.
Mm. So you have obviously experienced a lot of setbacks and challenges being an entrepreneur. So how did you maintain your motivation or resilience in face of all those challenges?
Mm, yeah, focusing, I guess, on the bigger goal. I think I'm just such a ridiculous optimist that it's just, and I love life so much that is, and I've been through some really dark times where it looks like it's just a like little dim light coming through a little hole in a dark wall. But music, movement, spending time with my kids. Um, I've only recently, through a fairly recent dramatic events, realized that actually friends really can help when you just talk things through, because for years, for decades, I've held everything inside,
Mm.
and it was a big mistake. I should have been talking to people. But but I'm just this kind of person, like if I'm dealing with something, yeah, it would be, yeah, just lots of music with multiple bands and in Wellington here, giving back, that really helps. When you stop focusing on yourself and you do some, I don't know, volunteering or just helping someone else quietly, it just resets your brain. Yeah, I think just something happens on a biochemistry level that you stop being the number one
Yeah.
sufferer in the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, I do a lot of volunteering work as well, and it's exactly for the same reason. It's like it's more than what you are contributing to someone or to a community. You're actually contributing something huge for yourself by volunteering.
Yeah.
So one wise man, Sri Ravi Shankar, had mentioned in his talk that like the easy way to get depressed is to just sit and think about what about me the whole time.
Hmm.
That question, what about me, can easily lead one to depression, rather than if you think about what can I do for others, or how can I help others, completely switches the frame of mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So now, what would a valuable piece of advice you would give to your younger self, thinking about your experiences, and what would it be?
Don't beat yourself up for not doing everything that she wanted. And when I say wanted, it's about learning everything and being an A student, or passing exams with flying colors. That is not what matters.
Hmm.
Making lifelong connections and nurturing them, because after immigrating twice, I wish I could say that I have a lot of friends that, are just there for me, but I have a handful and they awesome, but I wish I was nurturing those connections more. Um, and yeah, don't let yourself, the essence of you dissolve into someone else's dream. Like, be very clear about who you are and to listen to it. It is a lot of childhood conditioning that, contributes to whether you can do it or not, but that is the work that I had should be doing, and I was forced to do it in the last 10 years, to actually face this person and embrace it, and yeah,
Hmm.
look after it.
How do you define success? And has that definition changed over time?
Success. Um, I think you would see this flowing around quite a lot on the internet, and I really agree to it. It's slow mornings, being able to dictate your own pace of life rather than being part of the machine that tells you you have to arrive at this time, you have to leave like that. For me, that's a success. Um, Ability to spend time with my loved ones when they need me or when I want to. So that means that I've set up life for myself and others the way that I can do that. That's a huge thing.
Mm.
Health, that means that I do have time and mental space to look after myself and health of my loved ones as well. Um, and longevity of my skill, or I guess the unique value proposition of my business, how survivable it is over time or how adaptable it is, right? So that's, if we reflect on the business, I would say that business is successful because I was able to pivot, adapt, and still deliver that value to customer throughout all the crises and, whatever is happening around the world. You kind of can apply it to yourself as well. Whatever happens to you, if you're able to get up and face the next day, that's a success.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, have you had mentors in your life throughout your career?
That's another thing that I would advise to my younger self. Go and seek out those mentors. I always thought that I need one, but I never had one.
Mm.
There's a program that recently I've joined maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I've had some conversations with some very inspiring women. But what I realized that a lot of them are actually are career leaders. There's nothing wrong about it, right? But that they had experiences in a completely different way of building themselves up. Right. So this is an environment, with all due respect, where you don't personally have to worry about the bottom line of your company, which influences whether you can pay salaries to people in any point of your work life, right? So that gives you mental capacity to think about other things as a woman, as a person, and self-development is a huge part of it. So finding a mentor within that space who is a woman as well, that was hard. I've had some business advisors that came through the mentors kind of network as well, but what I was put off is that there was always a commercial interest for them. Like they wanted to be an advisors and they wanted to be paid for their services.
Mm.
So I understand the model of it, but it kind of had that, tainted feel to this. Um, all I had, it was, and it might sound really silly, is what would Audrey Hepburn do? What would someone, that you really admire do in this situation? So I was just mentally reflecting on what the people perceived behavior from those amazing people. Um, what would they do in this situation? But yeah, I wish I had a mentor. Yeah.
Are you mentoring anyone at the moment?
No, no, actually, it was again through a couple of engagements that I've made. There were a couple of ladies that did reach out, but I think COVID happened, and that just, it just became more difficult than, yeah.
Mm. So, what legacy do you hope to leave as a female entrepreneur and leader in the tech industry?
Say it again.
What legacy do you hope to
Legacy.
leave as a female entrepreneur and a leader in the tech?
Well, I think it's a, good segue from your previous question. If in any way I can make it slightly easier or more exciting for another woman that wants to step into this kind of exciting way of living. I would love to be able to do that. Um, it's not necessarily whether I'm a woman or not, but the legacy of its own is all the people's lives that I've touched in a positive way. And even if they don't realize it, and even if they mentally don't acknowledge it, that's okay. But like I said before, knowing that I enabled some families to flourish or even to happen in the first place, that is a massive legacy. Mm.
Wow. You actually made this whole journey like it appears as if it's quite easy. I know like there have been lots of hard work and tears and everything that's gone in behind this. It's very inspirational to talk to you because again, once again, going back to what you mentioned, that you are just optimistic. And that just comes through the way you communicate. And I really, really appreciate how now, thinking about what you've just said and listening to your conversation, it's easy to feel, wow, even probably I could do this. I can give it a try and see how it goes. So, really appreciate that optimistic twist to what you've been doing. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Mina.
much, Irina. Are there any last, like, final thoughts for our audience, for our listeners?
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to you for actually setting this podcast up, and thank you for fishing out us out of our deep ends, working midnight deep doing stuff. It was really good for me to reflect on everything that has happened in the last, almost 20 years. And yeah, thanks for this opportunity to talk to you and to your listeners.
Yeah, good luck with everything and congratulations again for 19 years of your organization. And I hope it grows and flourishes and you have more other branches and businesses moving forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mina.